Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. So in this video, I will be discussing about Karl Marx theory of revolution and modes of production. So let's start. So in this theory, he basically talk about dialectical relationship between the forces and relations of production. So in revolutionary period, one class is attached to the old relations of production. These relations hindered the development of the forces of production. Another class, on the other hand, is forward-looking. It strives for new relations of production. The new relations of production do not create obstacles in the way of development of the forces of production. They encourage the maximum growth of those forces. This is the abstract formulation of Marx's idea of class struggle. So the second one is the revolutions and history of societies. So the dialectical relationship between the forces of production and relations of production also provides a theory of revolution. In Marx's reading of history, revolution are not political accidents, they are treated as social expression of the historical movement. Revolutions are necessary manifestation of the historical progress of society. Revolutions occur when the condition for them mature. Let us take an example like feudal society developed capitalistic relations of production. When these relations of production reached a degree of maturity in Europe, came the French Revolution. Marx here spoke of another process of transformation from capitalism to socialism. This is how Marx interpreted historical movement of societies. So then he talked about social reality and consciousness. Now what is social reality and consciousness? Marx has made a distinction between infrastructure and superstructure. At the same time, he has also distinguished social reality and consciousness. For Marx, reality is not determined by human consciousness. According to him, social reality determines human consciousness. This results in an overall conception in which ways of human thinking must be explained in terms of the social relations of which they are a part. Besides the forces and relations of production, Marx has spoken about the mode of production. Accordingly, he has described stages of human history in terms of the four modes of production, namely as Asiatic mode. The second one is the ancient mode of production. The third one is the feudal mode of production. The fourth one is the capitalistic mode of production. So they constitute three distinct modes of exploitation of human labor. Asiatic mode of production, which does not constitute a stage in Western history, is distinguished by the subordination of all people to the state or the state bureaucracy. Now what is Asiatic mode of production? So Asiatic mode is the concept of Asiatic mode of production refers to a specific original mode of production. This is distinct from the ancient slave mode of production or the feudal mode of production. It is characterized by primitive communities in which ownership of land is communal. These communities are still partly organized on the basis of kinship relations. State power, which expresses the real or imaginary unity of these communities, controls the use of essential economic resources and directly appropriates part of the labor and production of the community. This mode of production constitutes one of the possible forms of transition from classless to the class societies. It is also perhaps the most ancient form of this transition. It contains the contradiction of this transition, that is, the combination of communal relations of production with emerging form of the exploiting classes and of the state. The concept of Asiatic mode of production is inadequate because there was no class, no concept of private property. The entire property is owned by the society, so that no individual has access to it. So no clashes of classes is there. Resources were low and there was low population. Gradually towards the end of primitive communism, there were certain groups of people who were physically strong, and so towards its end, the concept of private property came into being. So primitive communism could not survive, and there emerged a different type of society. So the second one is ancient mode of production. According to Marx, every part of the history has its end point. So primitive communism was to go and slavery came into being. People who had physical, political and material strength had authority over others. So two classes were found, and this is where the concept of private property emerged. There were two classes, the owning class, they are called masters, and non-owning class, they were the slaves. Marx had tried to suggest that in course of time, different people grabbed certain plots of land, as a result of which there was grabbing, and as a result of which a large number was left wretched. So they had to depend on their owners in order to make a living, and it went on rising, and so when they would not pay their debts, they were sold and engaged under the so-called masters. Slaves were mere chattels. They had no right and were used like commodities, and they could be bought and sold. So individuals were slaves, and it went on resulting in a family of slaves, and masters were masters. So it became very heinous of people worked without any voice, even if the torture was unbearable. Slaves were made to work under strict physical condition. They were engaged in agricultural, menial and physical labor. If the society has experienced heinous system at any point of time, it is slavery. So it was to go, and another stage was to come. So towards its end, a sort of internal struggle was found, so that the slaves, peasants started a revolution against the masters so as to release certain slaves from the clutches of the masters. Slavery is called the stage of initial agriculture. So agricultural capitalism was to come. Agricultural innovation would take place. Technology was applied to agriculture. People started to understand the dignity of labor, and the stage come. That is feudalism or agricultural capitalism. Now the third mode of production is feudal mode of production. So basically, at this stage, as Marx said, throughout the pages of history, we found two classes. They were feudal lords and serf. Lords owned the land in their favor, and their job was to lease land and employ agricultural labor in their lands. The owner who were leased had to pay certain taxes, and the laborer were given wages. This is even a heinous system, and the lords exploited by not paying the laborers is its dues. So Marx said that this stage was also exploitative in character. Heavy taxes were imposed on serfs. This stage could not grow much as industries were growing and people sought their jobs in industries and cities. So the serf fought against the lord. With the spreading of industries, urbanization grew, so emphasis was on industries, and came the next stage, that is industrial capitalism. So the fourth mode of production is capitalistic mode of production. Marx was very much bothered about this stage because this represented the most heinous, and migration was found from rural to urban areas. Those who worked in agricultural lands shifted to industries. There were two classes, the working classes, the proletariats and bourgeoisie. Marx wanted to champion the cause of proletariat, and he wanted that the exploitative character must go and equality be established. So Marx was futuristic. Socialism is the stage where the society is classless, and it is based on the principle of equality. Marx had experienced socialism, and there was spread of socialism based on his ideas. Communism is the ultimate final stage where there is a prevalence of equality among all. Everybody works according to his capacity and gets according to his dues. When capitalism goes and communism comes into being, there are some elements found in some form or other of capitalism in socialism. As per Marxism, socialism is the initial communism, and communism is the later socialism, because everybody is equal and can stand in the same queen, and communist society is thoroughly equal and no concept of private property or ownership is there. So in socialism, there are two ownership structure. The first one is state ownership, and the second one is ownership by cooperatives. But under communism, there is single ownership, that is state community ownership. Everybody gets as per his dues and work as per his capacity. This stage was difficult to find, so we find that with spread of Marxist ideas, we find communism in Russia and China, but socialism is the gap that still remains. So in this video, we talked about the theory of revolution and the four mode of production. So that's all from my side. If you have any queries, you can ask me in the comment section. Please like, subscribe and share my channel. Thank you for watching.